My parents skipped my baby's funeral for my brother's pool party, saying, "It's just a baby, and your brother matters more." So was the moment her grandparents looked me in the eye and said, "It's just a baby, your brother's party matters more." While we buried her, they were taking selfies by the pool, and they had no idea what that choice was going to cost them. The funeral they didn't come to. Grace was 6 months old when sudden infant death syndrome took her. If you've never walked into your baby's room and found them silent and still when they should be warm and breathing, I hope you never do. There aren't really words for that split second where your brain refuses to understand what your eyes are seeing. I remember details I wish I could forget. The tiny rabbit nightlight still glowing, her little half curled near her cheek. She looked like she was sleeping, but when I touched her, her skin was cold. When was screaming, I didn't even realize it was mine at first. Ryan burst into the room. He started CPR while I fumbled with my phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands that couldn't seem to press the right numbers. The paramedics came. We rode in the ambulance. There were bright lights, fast words, the smell of antiseptic. Then a doctor with tired eyes saying the words that shattered our world. "I'm so sorry. It appears to be sudden infant death syndrome." We held her for hours in that hospital room. Her body grew colder. Her face stayed peaceful. I kept thinking, she can't be gone. She was just laughing yesterday. She can't be gone. I had to call my parents. The first conversation after Grace died. I stepped out into the hallway with my phone pressed to my ear. My hands were shaking so badly I had to lean against the wall. My mother picked up. She said, like it was any other Tuesday, "Everything okay?" "No," I whispered. "Mom, Grace died last night." There was a tiny pause, the kind where you expect to hear a gasp, a broken sob, something. Instead, my mother said in a flat voice, "Oh, Lauren, that's terrible." That was it. "No, we're coming. No, we'll be there as soon as we can. No, put your father on the phone." Just those 3 bland words, like I'd told her my favorite show got canceled. We're planning the funeral," I said. "I'll send you the details when we know." "Okay," she said. "Let us know." Asked to talk to Ryan. She didn't ask any questions. She didn't cry. She didn't say she loved me. She just hung up. Meanwhile, Ryan's parents, Linda and Mark, were already getting in their car when Ryan called them. They didn't ask for details. They just said, "We're coming." And they did. Arrived at the hospital before my parents even texted back. Watching the hours later, I received a text from my mother. "No hi, no hi. No, how are you holding up? Just scheduling. Friday at 11, I typed back. Her reply came quickly. "Friday? Oh no. Ethan's pool party is Friday. His engagement celebration. We can't cancel that." I read it once, then again, then again. "Mom," I wrote, "that's Grace's funeral." She called. Her voice had that tone she used when she thought I was being unreasonable, the same one she used when I was 6 and didn't want to share my toys with Ethan. "Lauren, be reasonable," she said. "We've been planning Ethan's engagement party for weeks. People are flying in. Deposits have been paid. You can't expect us to cancel everything last minute." "Mom," I whispered, "this is your granddaughter. She died." "I understand that," she said, "but she's just a baby. You're young. You can have another. Ethan's engagement party is a once-in-a-lifetime event." That was the moment. The exact moment something inside me went silent. "I see," I said, and I hung up. They didn't call back. They didn't ask if I needed them. These chose. If you're watching this. Before I go further, if you're watching this or reading this somewhere, tell me where you're from in the comments. Not because it bumps the algorithm, though it does, but because sometimes it helps to know just how many people out there have their own stories of being failed by the people who were supposed to love them. If this story hits close to home, you're not alone. I promise you that. How I grew up invisible. To really understand why their choice broke me the way it did, you have to understand the way I grew up. I'm the younger child. My brother Ethan is 3 years older than me. From the moment he arrived, the entire family orbit shifted around him. If he was the sun, I was the faint little star somewhere in the background. Our parents, Helen and Robert, weren't cartoon villains. They weren't screaming or drunk or violent. They were just quietly, consistently unequal. Favoritism was the wallpaper in our home, always there, so constant that after a while you stop noticing it consciously. When Ethan made the soccer team in elementary school, my parents threw a backyard barbecue like he'd been drafted into the World Cup. Balloons, banners, coolers of soda, freights, neighbors invited, aunts and uncles with cards and small gifts. That same year into the honors program, I remember walking into the kitchen holding my acceptance letter. My mother was icing cupcakes for Ethan's "Congratulations on making the team" party. "Mom," I said, breathless, "I got into the honors program." She glanced at the paper, skimming without really reading. "That's nice, Lauren," she said. Then she turned toward the living room and shouted, "Ethan, what time is your game on Saturday? We need to tell Aunt Jenny." That was the pattern. Eth gets average grades, huge praise. I get excellent grades, that's nice. Philippines scores a goal, family dinner, extra dessert. Don't brag, it's rude. By high school, I stopped trying to impress them. I built a life outside our house. T-text who saw my effort. Blocking who understood my sarcasm. A guidance counselor who told me, "You're going places, Lauren." Mountain was just where I slept. The boy who came with a real family. In my sophomore year of college, I met Ryan. He wasn't dramatic or loud or flashy. He was steady, warm. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. After a biology lab, he approached me and said, "Hey, I missed a couple of slides. Want to compare notes over coffee?" Shut the place down. If he parents a few months later. Being in their house felt like stepping into a different world. Linda asked me about my classes and genuinely listened. Mark insisted I call him by his first name after the third visit. They talked to each other gently. They didn't interrupt. They laughed easily. "We're proud of you." They weren't talking about degrees or promotions. They were talking about character, effort, kindness. I remember sitting at their dinner table one Sunday and realizing I was relaxed. My shoulders weren't tense. I wasn't waiting for a criticism disguised as advice. Oh, this is what a family can feel like. Ryan and I dated through college. At 27, we got married. I became a pediatric nurse. He became an architectural engineer. We bought a little starter home on a tree-lined street about 40 minutes from my parents. Far enough to breathe. When Grace found out I was pregnant, I told Ryan's parents first. They cried. They shouted. They hugged us so hard we almost fell over. Linda started planning a baby shower before I'd even reached the second trimester. Mark began referring to himself as Grandpa in training. My parents' reaction? "Oh, that's nice," my mother said. Then she added, "Did you hear Ethan got a promotion?" They came to the baby shower, but they sat in the corner scrolling through Ethan's questions about the nursery. No questions about names. They didn't even stay for cake. Ryan noticed, of course. Later he asked, "Are they always like this with you?" "Pretty much," I said. "Don't worry about it." But I did worry about it, quietly. Deep down, a small part of me kept hoping they'd change when the baby arrived. When Grace was born, it was snowing. The sky outside the hospital window was a soft, muffled white. She came out wailing, furious at the cold, and then calmed when they placed her on my chest. She had my blue eyes and Ryan's dark hair, tiny fingers that wrapped around mine like she was anchoring herself to this strange new world. Ryan's parents arrived within hours with flowers and a blanket they held Grace. Mark just kept saying, "She's perfect. She's perfect." My parents came the next day. They stayed 45 minutes. My mother left early because she had a hair appointment. The engagement that took over everything. 2 months before Grace died, Ethan got engaged to Chloe. Our parents went into full wedding mode, like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly, every conversation was about venues, color schemes, caterers, flowers. My phone blew up daily with group messages about Ethan's engagement party, Ethan's registry, Ethan's timeline. Between Ryan and me, "Grace rolled over today. Did you tell your parents?" "Yeah." "Let me guess. That's nice. Did we mention Ethan's venue has a waterfall?" Had planned a small welcome ceremony for Grace, just a brunch with close friends and family, to celebrate her arrival and introduce her properly. On my mother called one afternoon, I reminded her, "Forget, Grace's welcome brunch is on the 14th. We booked it months ago." She paused. "Oh, right. About that," she said. "We set Ethan's engagement pool party that same weekend. We'll have to miss your little baby thing." "Your little what?" I repeated. "Your baby brunch," she said. "We just can't do both. Ethan's engagement is a once-in-a-lifetime event. You can always have more kids' events." Because it's suddenly pressing my hand against my chest. "Okay," I said finally. And once again, they chose him. At the time, I thought, well, at least they'll come to the big moments, the important ones. I had no idea what was coming. The night everything changed. A week before Grace died, she had a mild cold. No fever, no wheezing, just a stuffy nose and a little cough. I took her to the pediatrician anyway. He listened to her chest, smiled, and said, "She's okay, just a typical baby cold. Keep her hydrated, use a humidifier, call us if anything changes." I still took to weekend, she chewing on her stuffed rabbit. She loved when Ryan did silly voices. She'd grab his nose and giggle. On Tuesday night, everything felt normal. Breastfeeding, we fed her at 7, gave her a warm bath, put her in her soft white pajamas with the tiny yellow ducks. We laid her in her crib at 8, kissed her forehead. "Good night, Gracie," I whispered. "Mommy loves you." The baby monitor stayed quiet. Too quiet. I woke up with a jolt. Grace usually stirred around 5, making little grunts and coos. Silenced. I told Fine, "She's just slept longer. It's walk down the hallway." The house was dark and still. The nursery door was half open. The moment I stepped inside, something felt wrong. I can't explain it. The air felt heavier. I walked to the crib. "Grace?" I whispered. She didn't move. I touched her cheek. Her skin was cool. I remember the sound that came out of me, but Ryan later told me he'd never heard anything like it. He rushed in, grabbed her gently, laid her on the rug, and started CPR while I called 911. My fingers couldn't seem to hit the right buttons. I kept dropping the phone. The paramedics arrived. They tried. God, they tried. I held her tiny hand while a paramedic worked on her. I begged God, the universe, anyone listening, please, 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 take anything else, take everything, just not her. At the hospital, time dissolved. Tentative. Ken Doctor came in. "I'm so sorry," he said. "There's nothing more we can do. It appears to be sudden infant death syndrome." I remember staring at him and thinking irrationally, but she was just a little congested. How can she be dead? A nurse wrapped her in a blanket, even though she didn't need warmth anymore. Ryan held her against his chest. I stroked her hair and whispered apologies for every moment I'd ever been impatient, every second I'd looked away. He had to let them take her. The funeral without them. The funeral was scheduled for Friday at 11. A tiny white casket in the Garden of Angels, a section of the cemetery reserved for infants and children. On the morning of the funeral, I stood in front of my closet with a black dress in my hands, trying to understand how this was my life, how I was picking out an outfit to bury my child. On the car, on the way to the cemetery, I checked my phone one last time. Fireplace, some desperate, wounded part of me still hoped. My parents changed their minds. Maybe they were on their way. Maybe they realized what they were doing. Before, no missed calls. No new messages from my mother or father. But there was a text from Ethan. Sorry about the baby. Hope the funeral goes okay. Excited to see everyone at the party later. I turned off my phone and shoved it into my purse. Merged arrived at the Garden of Angels. The sky was gray. The air was cool. Grace's casket was so small it hurt to look at it. White, with tiny silver handles, pink roses arranged over the top. Ryan squeezed my hand hard enough to hurt. His parents flanked us like human shields. Friends came. Neighbors came. A couple of fellow nurses I worked with came. My childhood friend Hannah flew in on the earliest flight she could find. My college roommate Megan stood silently beside her husband, their faces streaked with tears. But the space where my parents and brother should have been remained empty. Blames noticed. I saw the confusion in their eyes. I heard fragments of whispers. Are her parents? Maybe they're running late. Do you think something happened? No one asked me directly. Ryan's mother gently deflected anyone who came too close to the truth. During this, Paul Lewis talked about Grace's short life and how much love she brought in such a little time. I heard maybe 1 in 10 words. Everything else sounded like noise underwater. My purse buzzed. In another life, I might have ignored it. In this life, in that moment, something in me already knew. I saw a flood of social media notifications. Ethan had started posting. There they were, Ethan and Poole, my mother holding a champagne glass, my father in sunglasses standing next to a grill, captions like, "Celebrating love today, #engaged, #blessed." It was being lowered into the ground. I stared at those pictures until they blurred. Behind I was clutching the collapse, my parents were smiling for photos. Ryan's mom whispered, seeing my face. I just handed her my phone. Her lips pressed together so tightly they turned white. When it was time to shovel dirt onto the casket, my knees almost buckled. Ryan's father caught Ryan by the shoulders. Ryan's mother wrapped her arms around me, supporting my weight. I dropped a handful of dirt onto the smooth white surface and felt something inside me tear in a way that would never fully heal. I didn't cry much at the funeral. Blaze later, in the shower, in the dark, in the nursery, in the car. At 3 a.m., when the silence in the house felt like an accusation. At the graveside, my grief isn't just crying over a coffin. It's the days after. It's your baby's room and your brain still expects to see them. The way your arm automatically reaches for a car seat that isn't there. The way the baby monitor sits on the nightstand, dark and silent, because you can't bring yourself to unplug it. Ryan tried to go back to work 3 days after the funeral. He came home at noon, eyes hollow, dropping his bag on the floor. I sat at my desk for 3 hours, he said. I don't remember what I did. I kept hearing her cry in my head. His parents came every day at first. They brought food we barely touched. They washed dishes, did laundry, gently handled all the ugly bureaucratic tasks. Death certificate forms, insurance calls, hospital billing. Not once. Not, how are you? Do you need anything? We made a horrible mistake. There was only silence from their side. The 7 days after the funeral, my phone finally lit up with my mother's name. I stared at it for a full minute before answering. Said, "Lauren, how are you?" she asked in the same tone she might use to ask about a cold. "How am I?" I repeated. "My daughter died. I buried her without her grandparents. How do you think I am?" A small sigh. "Now, Lauren, there's no need for that tone," she said. "We're calling to invite you and Ryan to Sunday dinner. Ethan and Chloe will be here. We thought you'd like to hear about the wedding plans. It might take your mind off everything." Take my mind off everything. like this was a breakup or a tough exam, not the death of my child. "I don't think we'll come," I said. "You can't shut yourself inside forever," she replied. "Life goes on. It's been a week." I hung up. Ryan found me on the bathroom floor again. "She invited us to dinner," I said. "That's good, isn't it?" he asked at first. "She said it would take my mind off everything," I said. "Like Grace is a bad mood I just need to distract myself from. Like she wasn't real." His face darkened. "They missed her funeral," he said. "They have no right to expect anything from you." But I needed something. Not their approval, not their support. I knew better by now. I needed the truth. I needed to hear them admit what they did. So 2 weeks after the funeral, I agreed to go to Sunday dinner. The dinner that changed everything. Their house looked exactly like it always had. Neat lawn, trimmed hedges, 2 flower pots by the front steps. The door opened before we knocked twice. The mother said, pressing a dry kiss to my cheek, "You look tired." I didn't reset for 6. The smell of roast chicken filled the air. Ethan and Chloe were on the couch with wedding magazines and a laptop open, scrolling through floral arrangements. Nobody said Grace's name. None one said, "We're sorry we weren't there." They talked about seating charts, honeymoon locations, flight peonies were in season. I sat at the table, rigid, listening to my fork scrape against my plate. Then a new photo on the mantel, a framed picture of Ethan and Chloe by the pool, my parents standing behind them, big smiles, champagne glasses raised. The party, the same day as the funeral. Something snapped. I sailed my fork down very carefully. "Did Grace's funeral interfere with your pool party?" I asked. Silence fell, the kind of silence that sucks the air out of a room. My mother frowned. "Lauren, this isn't the time. Because you missed the funeral, so this is the first time I've seen you since my daughter was lowered into the ground." My father cleared his throat. "No need to dramatize things." "Dramatize," I repeated. "Shu lied to the family, didn't you? Told them Dad's back was acting up?" Look offended. "We couldn't tell them we were at a party. People wouldn't understand." "I don't understand," I said. "Explain it to me. How do you look at your granddaughter's funeral date and your son's pool party and decide the party is more important?" "It wasn't just a party," my mother snapped. "It was Ethan's engagement celebration. Those don't happen every day. Grace she was just a baby." Ryan's chair scraped back, he said, voice tight. "And you talk about her like she was nothing." "Life goes on," my father said. "Dwelling on tragedy is unhealthy." The room spun. "You're not upset that she died," I said slowly. "You're upset that I'm not getting over it politely." "Lauren," my mother began. "I buried my child," I said, "and you were in a bathing suit." Ethan rolled his eyes. "We knew you'd make this about you." I stared at him. "You couldn't take one afternoon away from your perfect life to come to your niece's funeral." "That's not fair," he shot back. "Mom and Dad already told you it was complicated." "No," I cut in. "This isn't complicated. This is simple. Grace died. You didn't come." Chloe shifted uncomfortably, her eyes flicking between us. For a second, I felt almost sorry for her. She hadn't signed up for this. My mother stood up abruptly. "I won't have this table turned into some kind of interrogation. We're all grieving in our own ways." "No," I said. "You're not grieving. You're annoyed. Annoyed that I'm not sweeping your decision under the rug so you can go back to talking about centerpieces." Ryan touched my arm. "Lauren." "No," I said again, more firmly. "I'm done pretending this is normal." I looked at each of them in turn. "You didn't come to your granddaughter's funeral," I said, "and I will never forget that." We left before dessert. I cried most of the way home, shaking so hard Ryan had to pull over twice. That night, lying awake next to him, staring at the ceiling, I realized something important. They weren't going to fix this for me. They weren't going to suddenly wake up and become the parents I needed. Anything was going to change, I had to do something. Not to punish them, but to protect myself and to honor Grace. Record I brought to their house. It began as a messy set of notes on my phone, then turned into pages on my laptop. I wrote down every pattern, every moment, every memory that now formed a straight line to the day they skipped Grace's funeral. The soccer barbecue versus my honors program. The condo down payment for Ethan versus, you and Ryan are practical, you'll be fine. Abandonment party scheduled over Grace's welcome brunch. The way they called once after Grace died, and only to ask about funeral time. The phrase, "she's just a baby," echoing in my skull. I printed it all out. I also printed screenshots of Ethan's party posts, the timestamps, my parents' champagne smiles. One gray afternoon, a few weeks later, I called my parents and said, "I'm coming over. I need to talk to you, with both of you there." There was a pause. "Is this about the dinner?" my mother asked. "It's about everything," I said. Ryan asked if I wanted him there. I told him I needed to do this part alone, but he drove me anyway and waited in the car. When I walked into my parents' dining room, I put the stack of papers on the table. My father picked them up, flipping through. "What is this supposed to be?" he asked. "Blankets, a record," I said, "of a pattern, of a lifetime of choices where Ethan mattered and I didn't, and how that pattern ended on the day I buried my daughter without you." My mother frowned. "You weren't alone. Ryan was there. His parents were there." "Thank God they were," I said, because her own grandparents weren't. Shifted uncomfortably. "We already told you the timing was bad optics," I finished for him. "Is that why you lied to everyone and said your back was acting up? Didn't want them to know you were drinking champagne while your granddaughter's casket went into the ground?" I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table, the screen showing one of Ethan's posts. My parents in the background, laughing by the pool. My mother stared at it. She swallowed. "We didn't think it would look good," my father said finally. "No," I said, "because it wasn't good. It was cruel. It was selfish." My mother's eyes started to water. "What do you want from us, Lauren? We can't change what happened." "I want you to acknowledge it," I said, "not minimize it, not spin it, not hide behind excuses." "We're sorry you were hurt," my father said stiffly. "That's not an apology," I replied. "That's you blaming me for feeling hurt instead of taking responsibility for what you did." I pulled Warren from being opened and closed and rewritten a dozen times. "I want you to listen," I said quietly, and I read. The letter, Mom and Dad. When Grace died, my world collapsed. The only thing that could have made that pain worse was facing it alone. Your choice to attend Ethan's pool party instead of your granddaughter's funeral made that happen. You didn't just miss an event. You told me, with your actions, that her life didn't matter to you. None told me I was overreacting. You told me to be reasonable. You told me she was just a baby and I could have another. I need to understand something. Abandonment, there is no another Grace. There is no replacement child. There is no do-over for the day we put her in the ground. This wasn't an isolated mistake. It was the final, clearest example of a pattern that has existed my entire life. Ethan's successes celebrated, my achievements minimized. Ethan's treated as once in a lifetime, mine treated as expected or optional or reschedulable. Your decision about the funeral was not a slip. It was exactly who you have always been with me. I'm not writing this to punish you. I'm writing it because I finally see the truth clearly, and I need to protect myself and Grace's memory from further harm. Don't know what our relationship will look like in the future. I'm not cutting you off forever, but I am stepping back until you can acknowledge what you did, stop minimizing it, stop centering Ethan's life over everyone else's, bank my grief and my boundaries, familiarity, setbacks. I love you, but I love my daughter more. And I love the version of myself who refuses to accept being treated as less. Grace deserved better. So did I. Lauren. My mother was crying openly. My father sat rigid, jaw clenched, but his eyes looked shaken. I'd rarely seen him look unsure of himself. "You can't be serious," he said after a moment. "Over one missed event?" "One missed event," I repeated. "It was my daughter's funeral." "Everyone has a favorite child," he muttered. "It's natural. We've done everything for you," my mother interrupted sharply, using a tone I'd never heard from her before. So looked at the printed photo of Grace I had set on the table. It was one of my favorites. Grace in a yellow onesie, eyes wide, drool on her chin, looking delighted with life. "She had your eyes," my mother whispered. "Yes," I said. "She did." I never really... My mother's voice trailed off. She swallowed. "I never really looked at her, did I? Not properly. I was always busy with Ethan, with the party, with appearances." My father shifted. "Helen, don't start. Lauren is emotional right now. She'll come around." "No," I said quietly. "Not this time." I stood up. "I've said what I came to say," I told them. "What happens now is up to you." "Please don't go like this," my mother said, standing too. "I've been going like this my whole life," I said. "You're just seeing it clearly for the first time." I picked up my phone and my keys and walked out. My hands were shaking as I closed the door behind me, but my mind felt clearer than it had in months. For the first time, I had defended myself. For the first time, I had truly defended Grace. By the time Ryan and I got home, the extended family group chat was exploding. Apparently, my parents had called a few people looking for sympathy or validation. Instead, the story slipped out in messy fragments and then solidified as more details surfaced. Ethan was furious in the chat. "Had no right to air family drama like that, Lauren. Prohibited stirring things up. You're making Mom and Dad look bad over one decision." Judith, my dad's sister, finally replied. "One decision? They missed their granddaughter's funeral for a party. I had no idea. I'm ashamed of them. Lauren, if you need anything, I'm here." Other relatives chimed in. "I thought they were sick that day. I can't believe this. That's heartbreaking." My parents went quiet in the chat. Forbidden about revenge. I hadn't called them out to humiliate them, but I also realized I spent my whole life quietly absorbing the impact of their choices so they could keep their image clean. Not this time. If they didn't like how their actions looked in the light, they were free to choose differently next time. Grief turned into purpose. Time didn't heal everything. It didn't magically fix anything. But time plus effort did something. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in grief and trauma. Ryan came to some sessions with me. We talked about the guilt, the what-ifs, the anger, not just at my parents, but at the universe. I went back to work slowly. Being a pediatric nurse after losing a child is complicated.
There were days I had to step into the staff bathroom and cry silently because a baby's laugh sounded just like Grace's. That small memorial corner for her, a framed photo, a clay handprint, a tiny stuffed rabbit. We lit a candle there on hard days. "You have a lot of empathy for other grieving parents," she said. "Have you thought about support groups? Either joining one or helping with one?" a local nonprofit that supported families who had lost infants or young children. At first, I sat in the circle and just listened. Eventually, I started speaking. Surprisingly, they asked if I'd consider helping as a peer volunteer. My nursing background helped. My grief, well, that gave me a different kind of qualification. One evening, during a group meeting, a woman named Rachel started sobbing as she talked about her in-laws. They said, "You can just try again," she choked out. "My son died 3 weeks ago. He was 2 months old. They keep telling me not to dwell on it, like he's replaceable." I'm so Scott. My parents reminded my daughter's funeral for a pool party. They told me she was just a baby and I could have another. Rachel looked up, eyes wide and red. "What did you do?" she whispered. About it for a moment. "I stood up for her," I said. "I confronted them. I told them the truth, even when my voice shook. And then I focused on my leaders, whether they understood or not." "Did it help?" she asked. "It didn't bring Grace back," I said, "but it honored her. It told the world her life mattered." And writing eyes asking.
Settled in Rachel's face. Not relief exactly, but recognition. Over time, story after story poured out in that group. Blinded, minimized, and told to move on. Families more concerned with events and optics than loss. Friends disappearing because grief made them uncomfortable. Every time, I felt less alone. And every time, I felt more certain that sharing the messy truth mattered. For a while after the confrontation, my parents were quiet. No calls, no texts, no drama. Then one day, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was my father's. "Aap jaise hi agla hisab bhejenge." My hands trembled a little as I opened it. "Lauren," it began, "I don't expect forgiveness. I have been angry and defensive most of my life," I told myself. I did what any parent would do. That favoring Ethan was natural. That you were fine because you were capable. Reading your letter and seeing everything in one place made it hard to keep lying to myself. Wrong about the funeral. We were wrong about a lot more than that. We should have been there. We should have put you first that day. We should have put Grace first. Instead, we thought about convenience and appearances. I am deeply sorry. Not sorry you were hurt. I am sorry for what we did and what we failed to do as your parents. I understand if you need distance. I will try to earn back any place in your life if that's still possible. Dad. I read it 3 times. It wasn't perfect. It was late. But it was more genuine than anything I'd ever gotten from him. A week later, a small package from my mother. Inside was a delicate glass ornament in the shape of an angel. On the little metal tag were engraved words, "Grace, forever loved." The note was just one sentence. "I should have been there. I am so sorry. Mom." I cried harder at that single line than I had at any of her previous excuses. They erased what they did. It didn't make the pain go away. But it was the first step over a line I'd drawn. Not a full reunion, not instant forgiveness. A step. Grandfather, very slowly, having monthly dinners. With boundaries. Was allowed. My grief was allowed. Crossing to Ethan were not. Refusal or just move on talk meant the dinner ended early. To their credit, my parents tried. They slipped up sometimes. My father would start to say something like, "Well, Ethan never," and then stop, shaking his head, correcting himself. My mother asked carefully about our support group. She cried once when I mentioned a grieving parent who had no family support at all. "I never thought about how cold we must have seemed," she said quietly. "You weren't cold," I replied. "You were frozen. And you wanted me frozen too, so I wouldn't make things uncomfortable." She didn't argue. Ethan's role in all this. Ethan didn't reach out for a long time. He stayed on the defensive in the family chat, usually typing things like, "This is between Mom, Dad, and Lauren. Leave me out of it." But then, one rainy afternoon about 6 months after the funeral, there was a knock at our door. I opened it to find Ethan standing there, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, hair damp from the drizzle. "I hope this is okay," he said. Ryan was in the kitchen. I could hear him moving around, but he didn't come to the door. He was giving me space. Ethan held up a small potted rose bush, the soil wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. "I got this," he muttered. "I thought maybe for Grace's garden, if you have one. I don't know. Chloe said it was a good idea." "We do," I said. "We have a garden." I walked around back. The grass was wet. In one corner, we had a small memorial garden, a white angel statue, some perennials, a little wooden sign with Grace's name. Ethan swallowed when he saw it. "I never really thought about how it looked," he said quietly. "You know, from your side." I said nothing. "Mom and Dad always made such a big deal out of my stuff," he continued. "Birthdays, promotions, whatever. It felt normal. I didn't realize what you weren't getting at the same time." "You were a kid too," I said. "None of that was your fault." He knelt down and dug a small hole in the soft soil. His hands got muddy. He didn't seem to care. "I still should have been at her funeral," he said. "She was my niece. I'm sorry, Lauren. I really am." It wasn't a flashy Hollywood apology. His voice wasn't dramatic. It was small and rough and real. "It hurt," I said honestly, "a lot. But thank you for saying that." We planted the rosebush together. Through the kitchen window, I watched him stand there for a moment with his head bowed, like he was saying something silently. It didn't erase that day, but it mattered. The anniversary. On the 1-year anniversary of Grace's death, we held a small ceremony in the garden. Ryan's parents were there, of course. They'd been there every step of the way. My parents came too, nervous and quiet. Ethan and Chloe stood slightly apart, holding hands. Chloe had brought a small stuffed bunny to place near the angel statue. We lit candles. We shared memories. We cried. "You know," my father said haltingly at one point, voice thick, "I used to tell new fathers in the family to work hard, to focus on providing. If I could say one thing now, it would be, treasure every moment, every single one. I learned that too late with my granddaughter." I saw my mother's hand tighten around his. It was time we each placed something near the statue. Blindness and Mark placed a tiny pair of knitted booties. My parents placed the angel ornament with Grace's name. Ethan carefully placed a small plaque he'd had made that read, "Loved more than words, remembered more than ever." We released biodegradable balloons with messages tied to them. I know not everyone loves the symbolism, but for us, that gentle lift into the sky meant something. As I watched them rise, I felt grief and love and anger and gratitude all tangled together. Nothing was neat. Nothing was fully healed. But we weren't pretending anymore. That alone felt like oxygen. At some point during those long months of healing, I realized something. There were so many people like me. People whose families abandoned them in their darkest moments. People who were told they were overreacting. People whose losses were